Okay, delighted to be joined by Ian Reeves. Ian, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks, Sorta. Good to see you again. It's good to be home for Christmas.
Good stuff. Can you give a quick elevator pitch to the listeners who might not know who you are?
Yeah, well, I'll try. So Ian Reeves, head of psychological wellbeing and mental skills at South Sydney Rabbitohs. Have been working with the guys a year now. In a previous life, I was working with the Gaelic Players Association as their national lead for player development and wellbeing. I did 5 years with the GPA. Driving home from Limerick one afternoon after meeting a bunch of Clare lads, got a LinkedIn message off the head coach at South Sydney saying, Ian, we'd be keen to chat to you. How do you fancy a trip to Sydney? So kind of moved fairly quick, did a couple of interviews, and then the opportunity was there to join them. So South Sydney is one of the oldest NRL clubs in Australia, massive fan base, massive membership base, great club, great culture. So I'm down there now at the minute. But as I said, I'm home for a couple of weeks just to reset the batteries.
Great stuff. Can you give a quick overview of the level of rugby that it is that the club are operating at? Just for people, I've a lot of people in basketball or GA spaces that won't understand the rugby space in Australia. Can you give a quick kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of an overview of that landscape.
Yeah, so it's a professional sport out there. The way I describe it is the two biggest sports in Australia are AFL and NRL, so rugby league and Aussie rules. Melbourne is predominantly Aussie rules based, whereas Sydney is predominantly rugby league based. I went out there not knowing anything about rugby league, but it's like the Premier League in the UK. It's fucking huge. There's things on Billboard that's on every night of the week. There's kind of review shows Monday to Wednesday. There's games on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's 11 teams in Sydney, and then you've kind of got seven in you've got a couple in Brisbane, you've got one in Melbourne, you've one in Canberra, you've one in Townsville. So it's predominantly a Sydney-based sport, but it's huge out there. Everyone talks about it, everyone watches it, so it's pretty big. And then from the Rabbitohs perspective, pretty successful club. Have won 21 premierships. We're really big on kind of trying to achieve our 22nd. Last won it in 2014. Have had 5 of the last 6 years they've been in a final or a semi-final, but haven't kind of got that over the line. So be a man on a mission to try and help them get that 22nd premiership at some stage.
Very good. Going back to kind of, let's say, secondary school, going into college, a lot of younger listeners, and it's something that I really struggled with in school, was knowing what I wanted to do after school. And I'm still trying to figure it out. I think most people are. But what was that journey like, preparing for, let's say, going into college and getting to this point now? Can you take us through some of your early career steps and how you got to this point?
Yeah, so when I was in school, wasn't the best in school, but wasn't the worst in school, if you know what I mean. Kind of middle of the pack. Had to work pretty hard to get decent results, all that kind of stuff. Wanted to be a physio. Not sure where that came from really. And then I ended up getting my third or fourth choice on my after I got my leaving cert results, and I did sports and exercise in college. I knew I always had an interest in sport, whether it was any kind of sport, whether it was GA, rugby, soccer, golf, anything. I'd watch whatever. So I did the 3-year undergraduate degree in UCD, and yeah, look, it was probably a bit broad, and it was kind of nearly a commerce degree, but very much related to the sports industry. But in the second year of it, there was a 10-week internship that was mandatory, and I didn't know where I was going to go and what I was going to do. I was playing GA at the time, and the girl in the office that was kind of the workplace officer, if that's what you'd call her, she was like, "Look, the Gaelic Players Association might be a good fit for you." And I was like, "What do they do? Who are they?" So I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll explore that." I went into the Gaelic Players Association then for the 10 weeks, and it was brilliant. Like, they gave me a really good flavour of what they do around like player representation and standing up for the players, for I suppose better standards for them for the game. I got an insight into player welfare and what they do around very much like a physical perspective, and the amount of times they train, and the kind of medical side of it. And then I got a very good insight into the personal development and well-being side of the organization, alongside like seeing how the finance team run and the events and marketing and the communications and all that kind of good stuff. But in that kind of personal development and well-being space, I don't know, I just really liked it. They set me up with kind of a coach that players would get access to. And I went and met this fella for coffee one day, and I just came out of that going, I felt so good after meeting him. But also I was like, fuck, I want to do it. I would really like to be able to do what he did with me, with other people. And since then, my internship was extended. I did my final year in college with them. I was offered a full-time job with them after I finished college. And yeah, paved my own kind of path in there, but just learning really basics. I was like started as a coordinator, an admin, and then there was a massive shift and change in leadership. So that we didn't have a CEO at the time. The head of player development and wellbeing left. The player development manager left, and there was one person in the building that was doing it. So then Paul Flynn came in, ex-Dublin footballer, and he says, right, Ian, you have two choices here. You can either leave or you can run that department and do what you want and don't ask about anything, just go and do what you want to do at the start. And I was like 22 and I was fucking hell, like what do I do? So I just went for it. Learned a lot very, very quickly, like both good things and making mistakes and all that kind of stuff. But along that time then the GPA and Paul Flynn especially like really invested in me, supported me doing courses. So I did a life coaching course, a certificate 3. I did an elite athlete wellbeing certificate 4 with an Australian organisation, and then finally I did a master's in applied psychology, very much on coaching and positive psychology. And from there, then that was kind of my early stages. Kind of went in not knowing much, liked a certain area, and then there was a gap appeared, and then I just went for it. If you know what I mean.
And how did you find going in as a 22-year-old? Like, for people that don't really understand, GPA would represent and help any senior intercounty player across GAA, ladies football and camogie. But when you're going as a 22-year-old and you're going in to have these conversations with players about their well-being and one-to-one or maybe a team chat, how did you find that being so young and then being kind of given the keys to the whole department and just being like Paul just said, just run it? How did you find that?
Initially, like obviously there's elements of nervousness, and you know there was I'll never forget, like there'd be a stage where I'd get an email from a high profile player, right, and I'd be like, Jesus, like I'm gonna have to give him a call. And like I admire this fella, watching him on the telly on Sunday, and it's now Tuesday, and I have to ring him about something, you know. And at the time when pretty much the way we worked it, right, was that we had a load of external service providers. The player would come through the organization. They'd say, look, I'd be keen to get support. And I would do what I called back then was like a needs analysis. So I just asked them loads of open-ended questions. What are you doing here? How is this sound for you? And then at the end, I'd kind of be able to give them a recommended, right, I think the GA could support you with X, Y, and Z. And they were like, yeah, Ian, that's brilliant. And then I'd connect them with the service providers, right? So like over time, obviously, the first time I made a phone call, I was shit myself. The second time, I wasn't as much. The third time, not as much. So it just comes over time, like, you know. But then what happened in COVID was because we didn't really know what budget was going to be like, and where this was going to end, was that we had to stop working with the service providers to the level that we were working with it, and we had to start internalizing the support. So then I was starting to do the actual work that the players needed then and there. And again, like it comes with time, but the only way you figure out and you get better is to engage in something. You can't just sit around and read books about it. You have to go and apply it. So steep learning curve, team workshops and stuff, touch wood, like that's something that I've always been okay with, like speaking in front of a group. But yeah, like again, you learn lessons along the way, and the guys, some of the staff in the GP at the time, experienced people that have been around, and they like kind of mentored and helped me along the way and told me, Ian, that was great, but you need to do this, or Ian, that was shit, you need to do that.
The rookie camp, I think that's an interesting event that happens and something that's actually really clever. And you see it, you know, I'd follow the NBA and they do their own kind of rookie camp and stuff. What was the thinking about starting that up, and what were the key, or what are, I know it's still going, you're not involved, but what are the key kind of aims with that camp?
Yeah, so I'd say, again, because the players at the GPAs, in fairness to the guys, like, and it's been years in the making, like, the guys do a really good job of the program that they got in place. So as part of the GPA, they're a part of the World Players Association, right? So that's where all players associations across the world kind of meet and catch up. And the guys in New Zealand rugby were doing it. So any of their young all Blacks coming through, and the guys in English rugby, so any guys that might be playing with Bath, their Saracens, or Harlequins, they're doing it. The guys in the NBA, and we just kind of said, we need to probably start doing this. One of the things that we found was that players were engaging in the support structures of the Players Association when the shit started to hit the fan, right? They weren't being proactive with it. So they'd let all this stuff build up, whether it was young guys with college exams or college fees or feeling pressure from managers or feeling stressed about just keeping juggling all the balls that they have to do. And we just kind of said, look, there's an opportunity for us to bring them together, introduce them to the staff, introduce them to what the journey's going to be like, introduce them to the support structures that they've got, and try and get them started in working with their own personal coach from the get-go. So the first one I think we did was 2019, I think, and there was maybe 80 players at it. And now I see it's grown from strength to strength. I saw the guys have now got one up and running, and they're doing four regional ones with like 80 per region. So it's going from strength to strength. And again, I was only at the NRL's one it's probably 2 months ago. And again, similar principles kind of go, guys and girls, you have a great opportunity here. And this is the stuff that might get in your way. This is the challenges you're going to face. This is what people are going to expect of you. This is what we expect of you. Look, this is how we can support you. And workshops and guest speakers and really practical stuff that the guys can take away, and girls. And yeah, it's cool project, really good energy in those kind of events, and the players enjoy it. And sure, they're not too much younger than me. Like, they're 19, 20, 21, and it was a bit of good fun, all right.
What was the NRL one like? Did you pick up things that you said, oh, we did that, or that's really cool, I might do that again in the future?
Yeah, one of the things that they did, which I thought was different, and again, you could probably apply it slightly differently at home, was they do a lot of things around like cultural awareness. So in the NRL, you've got a lot of like Maori, Indigenous, Samoan, Fijian, Tongan, Pacific Island boys. So one of the things that they did, which I thought was really important to recognize, but they did like kind of like a cultural awareness piece with the players, and like how to greet and what's important for some people, and how different cultures show respect, and why certain cultures might be a little bit reluctant to get supported due to the fact that they've been brought up in a certain way, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was cool. I'm sure you could apply it and do it differently at home in a whatever way you do it, but similar themes, to be honest with you, Orla. Kind of very much a personal development focused, kind of a physical side of it as well, that your body's going to be put to the limit here, just how to look after yourself. Then a kind of a psychological one around kind of stress, anxiety, pressure, and the attitude you'd have towards that. And then kind of more yes, you're now into a professional setup where you've achieved your dream as being a senior inter-county player, whatever it is, but it doesn't last forever, and that we just need to keep ticking away at life for post-sport, whether it's studying something or doing an internship here or there, because those skills that the guys will get throughout their playing career are also really valuable for when they finish,
Yeah, that was actually something that came up in a few episodes I've done with kind of Irish Olympians, and I remember vividly with Jessie Barr kind of talking about the supports that Sport Ireland gave, and their big thing was, we were talking about the post-Olympic blues, that kind of cycle of, is this everything I've kind of trained for and now it's over, and what am I going to do? And they're good at kind of recommending you starting a course or doing something after, whether it's the season or the Olympics or whatever it is, like that, whatever you said there kind of resonated with me, of that's actually a really good thing of let's say after the intercounty season, if you've something else to look forward to that's not sport related, it'll just give you that kind of balance across your identity nearly.
100%. Like you see it in elite sport, you see it in all kind of shapes and forms, that pretty much, again, I'm sure if you were to research like retired athletes and afterwards put troubles, right, you'd see that players, once they kind of finish, that they literally fall off the edge of a cliff, right? And the attitude or the analogy that I'd give to the players currently that I'm working with on, but also the past, is that we're going to get to the edge of the cliff someday, whether that's a voluntary or involuntary. So voluntary was, I've played 13 years, I've played 200 games, and it's time to hang up the boots. Or the manager just goes, do you know what? New manager comes in and they want you part of the panel. And when that moment happens, you need to be able to go off the edge of the cliff, but you need a parachute to be able to pull, because if not, it's going to be a pretty steep drop. And in that parachute, you need something, or you need to know what you might do. Whether it's starting your own business, getting an apprenticeship, doing an internship, doing some voluntary work, having interest outside the game, whatever, it doesn't really matter. So in our program that I developed at South Sydney, we call it the next chapter, because that chapter is going to come at some stage, so we just need to be ready for it. And the boys have an appetite to do it. Like, they're keen, they're professional athletes, but they also have time in the week to study or meet people or network or whatever. So I think it's so important. But they also have, and sometimes again, because they're so, I wouldn't say they're in a bubble, right? But they're kind of looking at it very singularly around, I'm an athlete in these, I don't have these skills, but opening them up to kind of, you work as like the basics, you work as part of a team every single day, team dynamics. That's equally as valuable in a workplace. You're a really good communicator, and you communicate under really high pressure environments, and you communicate to the head coach and you get feedback all the time. Really valuable in a workplace. You get coached every day, you're given feedback, you're told you need to improve X, Y, and Z, you give others feedback. Really valuable in a workplace, like hard work, determined, able to manage adversity, problem solving, all that, like basic things. If you look at a job description, you're going to have all that stuff anyway. So although it might sound basic to somebody like me, to somebody that's just devoted their life to sport, it can be extremely powerful for them, I'm probably going to ramble here, but a quick story is, there's a guy, after he played for South Sydney from 2009 to 2019. Then he went to the UK and played for 4 years. Then he went to France and played for 2 years. Superb fella, a guy called Jason Clark, and he's just joined my team as the Pathways Academy wellbeing manager. And I'd done a couple of Zooms with him. He was getting ready to come back to Australia, came settled in. And I was like, how are you feeling being back at South Sydney? And he was like, I'm absolutely delighted, Ian, but this is my first time in my life sitting at a desk. It's 33, right? He's like, I don't even know how to use fucking Excel. And I was like, mate, that's fine. But again, he comes in every day, Ian, what would you like me to do today? Can you give me feedback on this? What do you think of that? Because that's the way he was wired as a player, So all the technical stuff around using Excel and putting a presentation together, or all that kind of stuff, that'll come with just time, engaging with it. But they have those kind of raw skills, and that's the kind of work that I would do with the players now during their career, to start pulling them out of them and helping them develop. But it's so important that they do something with it.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. And when you were telling me about the kind of going through the different soft skills, it reminded me of, I follow Noelle Healy on Twitter, and she's a qualified anaesthetist now, and she delivered a workshop about teams and effective teams, and pulled on all of her experiences with Dublin. And it just shows that there's this massive parallel. And even what you said there about Jason and being so open to feedback, because he would have been getting so much feedback as a professional player, he's obviously very good at that now. Those soft skills, are they, as you say, when you're pulling them out of lads that don't really realise they have them, can you see it kind of click in their head and see them kind of put it to practice?
Yeah, like, I suppose one of the core bits of the work that I would do was helping the boys develop self-awareness and emotional intelligence, and pretty much what they're good at, where they might have a couple of gaps, and what they might need to do to either, very much big on like strengths-based approach. So yeah, we have a couple of gaps here, but like, you're brilliant at these, so let's not just forget about the things you're brilliant at and work on all the things that you're not so good at. Let's really develop and really bring your strengths to the forefront. And when they do it and they see the value it has, both for them, basic on like well-being, performance, relationships, their mental health, their transitions, like managing change and having a strengths-based approach. Well, this has worked for me before, and this is what I'm good at. it makes it a lot easier. And then you've got some guys that have nearly an appetite because they nearly get the bit between their teeth to kind of go, yeah, I'm not as good as this, but I want to develop them. Um, be like if you put a lad in the gym, and again, they're wired this way that certain lifts, like their bench press is very strong, their squat's really strong, but their deadlift isn't as strong. I'm telling you now that they want to build on their deadlift more than they want to go. But again, different strokes for different blokes. Um, but yeah, supporting them from early ages, again, going back to the rookie camp, like if you could start to, I wouldn't say influence, but just speaking to players about that from early ages, it just kind of becomes the norm, if that makes sense. So when they get to 25, they're really switched onto it instead of them starting the journey at 28 and they're kind of going, I don't have too much long here left. Um, there's probably an element of, I wouldn't call it embarrassment around it, but it's kind of like, fuck, I probably should have done this a bit earlier. That's what I find with the guys.
And is that why you've Jason now involved in the academy? And what sort of ages are you, as that work starting in the club?
Yeah, so Jason, that's exactly why Jason's in the club. So we've got a model that we've developed for the senior team. Um, and then if let's say if that was advanced, Jason then has from 16s to 22 around that age. So then the 16s, 17s, and 18s get if you want to call it the beginner version of my model, and then the 19, 20s, and 21s have the intermediate, and then once the lads come into my squad, they get the senior version. And the objective is that very big on trying to keep talent in the club and have an elite player development pathway. So like our top 20 players in the pathway system will stay with us and be a future NRL player within the same club. There's some examples of that already within the club and legends of the club, but again, there's 280 players in the pathway. So what Jason does is we've just decided we're going to do group workshops with them. So once every kind of 2 months, and he's just kind of planting the seed with them. He obviously can't work with 280 players on an annual basis and the in-depth stuff. Whereas fortunately, I only have 35 lads that are there every day, in the building. So it's easier for me. So just trying to plant the seed. Nothing too complicated, nothing too hectic. Plant the seed. Obviously, if they want to meet with Jace or myself, they'll do on a 1-to-1. But yeah, the objective is there that when if they were to come into our senior squad, that's like, okay, yeah, this is the norm. This is what I do. This is what's part of my training program here.
When you mentioned self-awareness, it reminded me, I had a chance to interview Damien Hughes and we spoke about it. So I'll send you the clip he had after. But how do you develop self-awareness in players? What kind of methods or techniques do you use?
So we have a couple of things, right? So just even to ask them at the start, like, tell me what you're good at, right? To listen down a piece of paper. And when we say skills, I'm not talking around like throwing a rugby ball around the pitch or kicking a rugby ball. And again, trying to get them out of their head, I think, is also a pretty good technique, right? So they might get 5 things down. So I'm kind, I'm caring, I'm social, I give energy, and I can sometimes be a bit of the joker of the team, right? And then I might go, well, okay, great, anything else? And they're kind of going, fuck, now I'm stuck now. So then I might go, okay, what would your dad say you're good at? And then they go, dad probably say X, Y, and Z. And then I'd go, what's your best mate's name? Best mate is named Ian. And okay, what would Ian say then? And then, okay, what would the head coach say you're good at? And then by the end of it, they started with 5 and they're kind of struggling. Now they've got 15, and then might get them to rank them in order, whatever. There's like practical with using no tools, if you want to call it, but there's like psychometric tools or that are available. So a free one that, like, if people were keen to do, is like the VIA character strengths. You can go online and get it for free, get your top 5 really easily. And then again, I'd be coaching the lads when they get that top 5 or whatever to, okay, how do we apply it? So tomorrow, how do you apply that character strength? And then nearly setting them a goal with that in mind. But that's one tool. Another tool that we use is a tool called Spotlight Profile by a group in the UK called Mindflick. A performance psychology tool that looks at applying your lead mindset and your lead behavioral style. So we've kind of got 4 styles of both, and it gives this unbelievable report to the players around what they're good at, where they're gaps are, how they can develop it, what they need from other people, and then it goes into like due to that, then how they get confidence and what happens to them under pressure and resilience and stress. And it's a superb tool that I use with groups and individuals. So, but yeah, there's a number of different ways of going about it.
Brilliant. I had the chance to go to the States last year and kind of go in and kind of observe different basketball teams. And I remember talking to one of the assistant coaches at the Stanford women's basketball program, which is like the number one program in the States. And she had played in the WNBA and she played professionally. And I asked her a couple of questions, and one of them was, is the saying "great people make great players" accurate? And she said yes. And it's interesting, you can ask everyone that different question, but how do you find it? Is that saying true? Great people make great players?
I would think so, yeah. So this kind of concept of skill gets you to the door and behavior keep you there. Like if you have you look at all some of the best teams, right? You look at the All Blacks, they're kind of that legacy book. They're one of their principles or pillars of the book is like no dickheads. Yeah. We've a team that our head coach drives is good dads, right? So we have a lot of guys that are dads and we have a lot of guys that are going to be dads or maybe not dads or young dads, whatever. And if there's any kind of way or shape when a player's somewhat not living the standards or the values that we represent, all JD, our head coach, has to say to them is that what a good dad would do? And immediately they're like, no, it's not. Fuck, I fucked up. You know, it's just like it's kind of like a yardstick for us. You know, but yeah, I would be a believer in that. If you're a good person, it will enable you to perform at a higher level. 100%. Yeah.
Brilliant. You had another, I think it was on your Instagram story a while ago, and it was a slide I think you had up from a presentation, and you said go from being good to being great. How do you do it? It sounds more simple than it probably is.
Yeah, I suppose it's all around the 1% marginal gains. Yeah. Um. So look, like again, the conversations that I'd have with players is, lads, we're all pretty good players. We're all pretty good people. We wouldn't be in an elite sporting environment if we weren't, right? So we've got to here. But how do we go from this kind of good to being great? And you're just challenging the lads to kind of have a growth mindset where they make solid, like your growth mindset keys for me are effort, challenges and opportunity. You're going to make mistakes and then feedback is really useful. So it's just challenging the players on that 1% marginal gains, like raising their minimum standards. So on a good day, everyone kind of knows, yeah, on a good day, fuck yeah, I'm going to perform pretty well. Whether that's me as a practitioner of good energy, well organized, well planned, get my own stuff done of my own physical exercise, spend good time with people that are important to me, sleep well, eat well. That's a really good day for me, let's say. But it's trying to increase the standard of your day when, yeah, you're not really feeling arsed to do it, you know? And that's one thing that we probably need to develop on is that, or that's kind of the way that I would do it is that things are going good. I'm not questioning that. You're brilliant. Fair play to you. You're great. But when shit's hit the fan, you wake up in the morning, you're not really arsed. How do you get yourself to up it a bit? And it could be as basic as like creating better habits, reducing something, stopping doing something, continuing to do something, whatever it might be. There's loads of different ways that we discuss it. But yeah, that's definitely a focus for us this year with the players is we're all good. Yeah. How do we go from good to great? And that journey is going to be different for all different people, and different people will have like just different things that they need to develop to go from being good to great. So some lad might already be really strong and really fast and really powerful, and that's grand, but his eating habits are on the floor. Or his self-talk is really bad, or his habits outside of footy are bad, or his whatever. I'm plucking these out of nowhere. So for him, it's kind of like doing a bit of a needs analysis of what's great and what's good. And then, okay, what do we need to do to move these up while also maintain the things that are great, you know?
Yeah. My favourite question to ask, whether it's on the podcast or coaches that I just go and watch and observe from, is what separates the great players, the great athletes from the rest of the pack? What do you see as that kind of difference maker, or that what makes the 1% of the 1%? And this is kind of aside from obviously physical ability, height, the strength, those sort of stuff that are genetic. What are those intangible things that you see?
Okay, I made this up one day, but I think it resonated with me, right? Um, you always hear of GOAT, yeah? Like you're a GOAT, right? But I broke it down into four, right? Again, prove me wrong, whatever. Not even prove me wrong. Challenge me, debate it with me. There's definitely more, but just I think these four in particular. Gratitude, number one. Like grateful for what they do, appreciate the small things, do the small things, but always do it with a smile on their face. And they're grateful for whether it's whatever, they never forget where they came from, humble, grounded, whatever way you want to word that. Um, ownership, kind of just this is your path, you've got to do it. You can't be blaming others, so very much focused on self. Um, attention, very well equipped to focus and concentrate and be present and engage and kind of that mental skill stuff. And the last one, which might be a bit contradictory, is time. Just give it time. Rome wasn't built in a day. Run the mile you're in, whatever way you want to word it. But that time is going to lead to progress, and that's the 1% marginal gains. In the presentation, I was like, yeah, everyone talks about the goat, and I was like, but I think those four are pretty important, and that's what I would think.
Brilliant. Was that just you brainstorming that one day, or how did you come up with that?
Yeah, brainstorming. Yeah, brainstorming.
Very good. I'm going to rob that. I'll give you the credit though. Don't worry. And it's interesting though. How do you measure success when you're working with players? Obviously, it's different for everyone, and everyone has their own. As you say, they're trying to improve their own way. But overall, from your role, maybe in an organisational point of view, or if I was kind of within the organisation, say, Ian, what did you do this year that was good, or what was your success story this year? What would it be?
Yeah, in really good question, probably a hard question to answer. So when you're working with people from a well-being perspective, right, like the way you would get measured when they're doing a fitness test or a weight session or their body fat percentages from a physical point of view, there's also measurements from a psychological point of view. Now, the problem is that I'm not measuring you because I'm not inside here. So they're measuring themselves. And look, anybody can bluff that kind of stuff, but if I have the trust and rapport with the players to ask them to do it truthfully and all that kind of good stuff. So one of the objectives is helping the boys move towards really positive mental health and psychological well-being. And you can kind of have three categories of not feeling too good, which is languishing, moderate mental health, which is kind of middle of the road average, and then we've got flourishing, which is really strong. So for me, it's kind of, I get their baseline, and then I will support them in kind of moving that towards flourishing, whether they're already at flourishing or I need to get them to that stage. So that's a measurement. That's number one. Would like to think that there's a measurement then of kind of players that are engaged in off-field activity, so that next chapter piece. So trying to get that to like somewhere like 80% of the playing squad. Look, there's obviously results, right? On-field performance results. Within my contract, I don't have an on-field KPI. That might change as I enter into doing more mental skills work. That may or may not. I don't know, but for now, it's not. But yeah, they'd be the big ones really. Lads are feeling good and functioning well and performing well, great. If they're feeling good and functioning well, that's my main objective. I don't have full control over the on-field performance. That's very much the coaches, assistant coaches, attack, defense, etc. If I can do a good job and they can do a good job and we combine and the players deliver and take ownership and have good attention and give it the time, hopefully we can all succeed as a unit,
Mm-hmm. How do you find that collaboration piece between the on-field coaches and the work that you do away from the pitch and other people that are away from the pitch within the club?
Really good. Like touch foot again, I've heard horror stories of coaches that struggle because, or practitioners that struggle with coaches because some coaches want to know at all. Some coaches don't give any flexibility or any time and schedule to do stuff. Brilliant relationship with our head coach, great fella. Actually played rugby league with Andy Farrell, would you believe? So that's a good in for me, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, played it with them, played against them. But yeah, great fella. Really big on family, really big on connection, and yeah, I probably think, or that's a bit cliche, but if you're doing a good job, he trusts you to do it.
Yeah.
You know, there's times where he's like, "How is Johnny or how's Brian or how's Mark getting on, etc., etc." And I just need to be careful there what I do, and I'll be like, "Yeah, bit going on, but trust me, I'm around it. He'll come and talk to you when he's ready to." And him just knowing that, he'll just be able to manage his interactions with that specific player. Um, and then if there was a time where I know Ian, I need you to tell me, I'd be like, look, it's not my place to do it. And if I was to tell you, it would hamper my relationship with him, and then we're back to square one altogether. So just trust me with this at the minute. And then I've timed the schedule, so I have a Monday morning session with the players, Monday mindset, and then I do a Thursday session with them from very much more well-being, career education stuff. All the preseason, it's never no. I want to take that out because I want the lads to go home earlier. I want the lads to do video stuff for wrestling or fucking gym or pitch. It's just always there. So yeah, it's touch wood. It's been great.
Mm. How do you find it moving? How did you find it originally moving from a role within supporting players in an amateur setup compared to now working within the professional environment? Was there that big adjustment for you within, I know your role obviously changed, but kind of realising you're moving from the amateur sport setup into a professional world of sport?
Yeah, it probably so number one, like intensity went from, because I was working with an amateur sport, but also the Players Association, I wasn't connected loyally to any squad. So I could have talked to a Louth footballer on Friday. They got promoted to Division Two on Sunday, and I'd be like, geez, fair play to them, and would have no connection. Whereas now I'm fully invested. And I probably ride, one thing that I need to work on is I probably ride that roller coaster with the team too much. And like when you win, it's brilliant. The facility's on wheels, the players are bouncing, everyone's in great form. It's it's brilliant. And last year we started the year so well. We went 8 games on the trot winning, and I was like, this is unbelievable. But holy shit, when you lose, you come crashing back down a lot quicker. So it's recency bias, if you know what I mean. So like when you lose one game when you've won the previous 8, you literally forget about the 8, and all you can think about is the one that you've lost. And then your question, do I need to do anything different and all that kind of stuff? That's the way I'm wired anyway. But in terms of working with the actual athletes, at the end of the day, you're right. And this be my attitude, at the end of the day, they're still people, but they're just good at throwing a ball around in a different way. So they have the same kind of psychological thoughts, feelings. They still have different behaviors. They might have slightly different needs and wants. So amateurs might have, again, this is very, very broadly speaking, might have an element of lifestyle because they're balancing work and play, but then also a financial piece. Whereas the other guys have a little bit of a different because they're financially paid and then they don't need to work. So they don't really have that, but their challenge is in a different way of, fuck, I don't know what I want to do. I've never sat at a desk before, you know? Uh, so they're similar teams, but just kind of if you break it down to sub teams, they're slightly different.
Okay, interesting. How do you find it? Who do you learn from, Ian? Like, where do you upskill yourself away from kind of courses? Do you have mentors? Do you people you reach out to people in the industry that you look up to?
Yeah, like the industry is because the industry is quite small, right? It's pretty, I wouldn't call it tight, but there's some really good people there. So I've my own coach that I work with. Irish guy, superb fella. Worked kind of both in sport and business. I have a guy in Australia. Again, he works with an AFL team. He works with ourselves. He works with some organisations and other absolute gun like wizard. I've never seen him get angry. I've never seen him challenge me in a way that's negative. He listened until the cows come home about stuff. Um, but then you've got like people like close to home that are well known. Like these guys would be very well known in the industry, but not from a media point of view. But like you look at the likes of Gary Keegan and the work that he's done with the Irish rugby team and how he's probably transformed that connection and the work that himself and Andy Farrell have done from a leadership perspective. He spoke at our rookie camp, GPA's rookie camp in 2020, and fucking hell, he was shit hot. So he's somebody. You mentioned him, Damien Hughes is somebody. Liquid Tinker, that's him, isn't it?
That's him, yeah.
Yeah. Then you've some guys in the States. So you've got kind of high performance psychologists, a guy called Dr. Michael Gervais, done a lot of study on some of his stuff.
I would listen to his podcast. It's very good.
Yeah, done a lot of study on his stuff. You've got some of the guys out of Mindflick that do that spotlight profile. So some of them have worked with like Man City, McLaren, and the Formula One, English cricket, the English rugby team. Some of them are really good. Is there anyone else off the top of my head? It's a fellow called Owen Eastwood. Not sure if you saw his book Belonging, just really around just how do you create a sense of belonging within a team. But again, it's very much around relationships and well-being, and how do you create a culture where everyone feels they can be themselves. And just again, golden keys to having a really good team.
Very good. Any particular books or podcasts that stand out to you apart from that one, Belonging?
That Finding Mastery podcast, pretty good. Dr. Michael Gervais. Again, probably one of the books that has had a positive impact on me personally was, and I read it. Look, I'd say I read it 5 or 6 years ago. Was Atomic Habits. Just so easy to read, so practical. You can literally read 5 minutes and you can then do something, and you can just see the benefits and how it actually works. Anything else? The Chin Paradox is also a one that I just think is a bread and butter. Yeah, a bread and butter for me. That's probably another one.
Okay, very good. What's the biggest misconception about working in sport? I'm conscious I'll have young people here that want to work in the industry, whether it's within professional setups or amateur setups, and maybe not as well-being, but in the entire industry, what's the biggest misconception about working in sport?
Oh God, where do I even start with that one? Yeah, I would say, and I probably don't want to be negative, it's not as fancy and flashy as it looks. It's fucking tough work. You see the 90 minutes at the weekend, or the 80 minutes or 70 minutes, and you're in front of the telly, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on to get to that point in a season or in a week or in a day. It can be long hours. You're away at the weekends. Like there was a stage there last summer, I was away 7 weeks in the trot. I think I had 5 nights in my own bed over those couple of weeks. We're tough on, you're missing out at weekends because you've got games on. You're traveling. So we go on a Thursday, we're back on a Sunday. That's weekend gone, back to work on a Monday. So yeah, it's probably not as flashy and fancy as it looks. While it's great and it's on the telly and people enjoy it, there's a lot of stuff that goes in behind the scenes.
But you wouldn't change it, would you?
Oh, no, I wouldn't change it.
I knew that'd be the answer. What are the most essential skills within your role, Ian? Any really standout skills for you that you rely on a daily basis?
I'll give you two, and it's simple as that. Ask good questions and be a good listener. Simple as that. Really simple as that. Yeah, ask good questions and then be a good listener. Be a listener to what's being said, but even more importantly, what's not being said.
Brilliant. Very good. Another question I want to ask is, 10 years time, or I meet you in 10 years time in the street, 10 years has passed since this conversation. Where would you like to be when I ask you how are you getting on?
I think I'll be back home anyway, put it that way. I won't be in Australia still, I don't think. And I'd probably love to be running my own business, working with people, whether it's working with students, working with businesses, working with teams, working with like people in the public sector, just around just becoming better, being a better person, fulfilling potential, that kind of thing. Like very big on, I've studied this, I've got this kind of knowledge on what you probably can do to become better and have frameworks to do that, or ways to make you figure out how to get better. So I may as well give it to people, instead of holding on to it. So yeah, I think that would be it. I'd hope to anyway.
If you could go back to the beginning tomorrow, let's say it's probably going into college and figuring out what you're going to do, and get a chance to do it all differently, what would you do differently, if anything?
I would probably, I'd probably, what would I do? I'd probably try and meet people earlier, if that makes sense. So like really fortunate to have met like this guy Shane McCurry in Australia, like super fella. He's a kind of a he's a thought leader, high performance consultant, like brilliant guy, but like meeting with people that you're interested in speaking to instead of going, oh, they're just there, like they'd be busy. So I'd probably try to do that. So it's networking, isn't it? That's probably the way I'd call it. But informal networking, if that makes sense. You're not going to in a suit and it's just, geez, look, can I just hear what you do? That's what I'd probably do.
What's the biggest challenge facing players reaching their potential on and off the pitch?
I would say their mindset. Yeah, that mindset of on a good day we're flying it, but on a bad day, that's where we're not being, it's too low. Yeah.
Brilliant. I purposely didn't give you this question earlier because I love hearing kind of the raw reaction. But I'm going to ask you, if I could give you the key to be a fly on the wall to any team for a week, or a coach or whoever it is, who would it be that you'd love to just watch for a week and learn from?
Red Bull Formula One, Max Verstappen. Yeah, would love to just see and listen and hear because I think, and there's no disrespect to any of the other unbelievable teams that are out there, Irish rugby team, All Blacks, like soccer teams, whatever. But I just think you might get something different in Formula One, McLaren, or Red Bull, whatever one for Stoppen's with.
Okay, right. Did you watch that Netflix series Drive to Survive? Is it?
I did,
Yeah.
yeah.
Would you recommend it? I haven't seen
Um,
it yet.
oh yeah. I'd get stuck into that now if I was you over the Christmas.
Because I watched Breakpoint. Did you the tennis one? It's very good.
I've watched the golf one and I've watched
Oh
the
yeah, Full Swing, isn't it?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
they're very good. And we're going to move on to the sideline seven. It's the same seven questions at the end of every episode. Question one, Ian. What's your favourite quote? I get the sense you are a bit of a quotes man, are you?
Um, I am and I amn't. One that actually my dad said to me, geez, it must be years ago. It was what got you here won't get you there. Right? I just think it's a really good one. Um, don't know where he got it from. Don't know. He probably got it from some book or something or heard it. But it's again around that trying to just get a little bit better because where I am now, I'm not gonna. What's worked for me now to now is not going to get me to my next step.
Yeah, I think that was on the Finding Mastery podcast where they were talking about elite athletes like getting to the NBA, and it's like everything that's got you to the NBA. It wasn't the NBA, but that's an example. But that won't get you to being an all-star. It's like being able to kind of recognize what you've done but do it completely different. That's really interesting. That's come up.
Yeah. And I'd say that was 5 years ago, not more.
Question two, what's the best sporting event you've been to? And you can pick one as a fan and one that you're involved in.
The one best event I've been at, a sporting event. Um, Jamie Mac. That jumps out to me. I have to say, I'd probably pick Stephen Cluxton in 2011. Um, and involved in, oh God, just like with South Sydney.
Or anything that you've been involved in, whether it's playing yourself even as a kid. Someone picked their like under some really like underage game that they just stuck out to them.
Um, I have to say we played the reigning champions that we lost in the final last year, in round to six this year, and we scored a try to win the game by a point with like 30 seconds to go, and like I couldn't even imagine how the players felt because I was on the bench, I was losing my marbles, it was unreal. Fans were going absolutely ballistic.
Any particular sporting event in your bucket list? Anything you want to go to?
Anything that I'd like to go to. Um, God, I was fairly jealous of some of the crew now in France at Rugby World Cup games and all that kind of stuff. But um, Nothing's jumping to mind. I Yeah, nothing's jumping to mind really off the top of my head. Um, no, nothing that I'm like, yeah, I need to be there.
Yeah, nothing that you're dead set on. That's fair. Question three: what's the biggest setback or challenge you've faced in your career, and how did you react to it?
Um, I'd probably say that time with Paul Flynn where he was like, right, there's two things here. You can go and jump in that deep end and figure it out for yourself, or we're going to have to get somebody else to do it. And that was a challenge because I was nearly operating in fear, but like it fucking crowned me. Like I was learning and I was nearly working so hard for so long that I was like, right, I'm probably nearly overthinking it at times, but that was definitely it. That probably taught me quite a little bit about myself, but also what I probably need to do or where I need to go.
Very good. On the flip side, then, what's been your biggest achievement to date?
Oh, I don't know, like, not really good at those kind of questions, but um, probably says a little bit about driving home from Limerick or Clare and getting a message on LinkedIn off a rugby league head coach on the other side of the world, really. So that's probably a pretty decent achievement.
Yeah.
Um,
What was the link that they found you through? Was it just them searching on LinkedIn, or what was the backstory to that?
I did as part of that development piece with Paul Flynn. I did a course with an Australian institute, and I did it before COVID. Boxed off, didn't hear any more about it. Had it in the back pocket, the tools, etc. that I got out of it, and then back in 3 or 4 years later, you get this message on LinkedIn, kind of saying, "Yeah, we're keen to chat. We've heard some good stuff." So you wouldn't know where you end up finding people talking or not talking.
Yeah, very good. Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self, Ian?
Um, Trust the process. Um, Slow and steady wins the race. It's not like you don't need to be sort of rush. And I still probably challenge myself with that, like just kind of even now that I've probably I'd say I found myself thinking about it in March that I just got. I always wanted to go to Australia. Always wanted to work with a professional team. Always wanted to work with a good team. Now working in Australia, working with a great team in professional sport, and I'm already finding myself thinking, where might I go next? But I just need to steady on a bit.
Question six: who would be your dream dinner guest and why?
Oh God, bit different, but might not be different. Phil Jackson, Chicago Bulls, Boyle. I just thought his book was unreal, but also just before his time from a leadership perspective, I think you would learn like so much, so much out of him.
Yeah, his book was very good. Did you watch The Last Dance?
Yeah, unreal, unreal.
What do you think?
Yeah, they need to make more stuff like that. So they do more stuff.
I agree. Final question before I let you go. If your life was a book, Ian, what chapter would this be called?
Um, that is a banging question. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called? Uh, Climbing the ladder.
Climbing the ladder. Very good. So we've big things to expect.
It's like, yeah, I'm not even halfway up it yet. I don't think that would be my approach anyway. But yeah, we'll wait and see. I could fall off. I could fall off the ladder next week now for all I know.
If there's anyone listening that would like to keep up with the work you're doing, or wants to reach out, or just meet for a cup of coffee, or maybe over Zoom, if they're not in Australia, where's the best place to get in touch with you? Ian? Plug whatever you need to now for where people can find you.
Yeah, probably LinkedIn or Instagram really are the big two. But also I'd be encouraging people to follow the South Sydney Rabbitohs on Instagram as well. Get a few bunny supporters in Ireland along the way.
Very good. Ian, thanks so much for your time. I'll let you go. Best of luck with next season and beyond. And thanks so much again for joining the podcast.
Nice one. Thanks, Orla.